The long back corner. Everyone in the market steers clear of that forgotten corner. But Lina's ambition blinds her to the warnings. When the long shadow with a twisted back starts watching, will she escape the darkness that follows? Part 1. The Empty Promise. The morning sun, already fierce, beat down on the sprawling marketplace. A vibrant tapestry of human activity. The air thrummed with a symphony of sounds. The rhythmic chop of cleavers on butcher blocks. The melodic cries of vendors hawking their wares. The incessant murmur of haggling voices. And the distant, tinny strains of a traditional street musician. Amidst this controlled chaos, Lina, barely in her 20s, but with an ambition that belied her youth, navigated the throng with a determined grace. Her small wooden cart, laden with an array of shimmering, handcrafted jewelry, delicate silver pendants, intricate beaded bracelets, and earrings that caught the light like captured stars, was her hopeful vessel into this bustling world. She was new to this particular market, a fresh face among generations of established traders, and her bright, almost naive optimism was a stark contrast to the weathered cynicism of some of the older vendors. Her eyes, sharp and quick, scanned the labyrinthine aisles, searching for the perfect spot. Most stalls were cramped, barely offering enough space for a display, let alone a comfortable negotiation with a customer. Then she saw it, a pocket of surprising emptiness, tucked away in a corner where the market's main thoroughfare veered sharply into a dimly lit, almost forgotten annex. It was spacious, unusually so, offering ample room for her displays, and even a small chair. Perfect, she murmured to herself, a triumphant smile touching her lips. All this space, and no one's taken it. It seemed too good to be true, a hidden gem in a sea of competition. As she began to push her cart towards this promising void, a gruff voice cut through the market din. "New here, girl?" Old man Chen, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, etched by years under the sun, watched her from behind his stall of dried herbs. There was a peculiar glint in his eyes, a mixture of curiosity and something akin to apprehension. Lina, ever eager to make a good impression, turned with a bright smile. "Just started today. I'm Lina, and this spot, it's amazing." Her enthusiasm was genuine, almost infectious. But old man Chen merely shook his head slowly, a deep, weary sigh escaping him. "Amazing, you say? That corner, it's been empty for years. For good reason." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Auntie Mai, a plump, kind-faced woman who presided over a mountain of fresh vegetables nearby, leaned in conspiratorially. "He's right, child," she whispered, her voice low and grave. "No one dares to set up there. Not anymore." Lina's brow furrowed. "Why?" she asked, a hint of impatience creeping into her tone. "Is the rent too high? Or is it just bad feng shui?" She tried to lighten the mood with a touch of modern cynicism, but the older vendors exchanged a look that sent a shiver down her spine, despite the warmth of the day. "It's not about rent," old man Chen continued, his gaze fixed on the empty corner. "It's about what you see there. And they see a long back, always facing away, and bad things, they follow." Lina chuckled, a nervous edge to the sound. "A long back? Sounds like an old wives' tale. I need a good spot and misses it. I'm not afraid of shadows." With that, she turned her back on their warnings, her ambition overriding their ominous pronouncements, and began to unload her cart, oblivious to the silent dread that settled over Old Man Chen and Auntie Mai as they watched her, their faces etched with a mixture of pity and foreboding. The corner, once merely empty, now seemed to hold a silent, watchful presence, waiting. Art 2. The whispers begin. The initial rush of triumph Lina felt upon securing her coveted corner stall slowly began to dissipate as the day wore on. Despite her meticulous efforts to arrange her handcrafted jewelry, making each piece sparkle invitingly under the market's ambient lights, her corner remained strangely desolate, while the rest of the market buzzed with activity, a constant stream of customers flowing between stalls. Her section seemed to exist in a peculiar vacuum. People, she noticed, would often glance her way, their eyes lingering for a moment on her vibrant display. But then they would quickly avert their gaze, accelerating their pace as if an invisible barrier repelled them from her space. She tried a few times to offer a friendly wave, a welcoming smile. But the response was always the same: a hurried step, a quick turn, a deliberate avoidance of eye contact. It was as if her corner was marked, not by its emptiness, but by an unseen warning. A subtle yet persistent chill began to permeate her stall, a stark contrast to the general warmth of the market. Lina shivered, rubbing her arms, convincing herself it was merely a draft, a quirk of an old building. But the chill felt different, a cold that seemed to emanate from within the very air of her corner, clinging to her skin. As she adjusted a display, a small, intricately carved earring stand, which she had meticulously balanced, suddenly tilted. It was an almost imperceptible shift, yet enough to send a single, delicate earring clinking softly onto the worn wooden floor. Lina bent down, retrieving the tiny piece, her gaze sweeping the immediate area. No one was close enough to have bumped it. Must have been loose, she muttered, though a prickle of unease had begun to form at the back of her neck. She straightened the stand, pressing it firmly into place, ensuring its stability. As the afternoon waned and the market began, but the words felt hollow, unconvincing even to her own ears. Pulling out her phone, she hastily put on some upbeat music, hoping its cheerful melody would fill the unsettling silence and chase away the creeping dread. She continued her work, but her movements were now a little faster, a little more jerky, her eyes darting nervously into the deepening shadows with every passing moment. The corner, once a beacon of opportunity, now felt like a cage, slowly tightening around her. Art 3. The first glimpse. Hours stretched into the deep, unsettling quiet of the night. The market, once a cacophony of life, was now utterly silent, save for the low, almost eerie hum of Lina's music, a desperate attempt to ward off the oppressive stillness. The main market lights had long since been extinguished, leaving Lina's corner illuminated only by the stark, bare bulb she had brought, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and stretch with every creak of the old wooden structure. Hunched over her small workbench, Lina meticulously polished a silver pendant, her brow furrowed in concentration, trying to lose herself in the intricate details of her craft. She tried to ignore the persistent chill, the feeling of being watched, the subtle shifts in the air that had plagued her all day. A sudden sharp clack shattered the fragile piece. It sounded like something hard hitting the wooden floor, just behind her stall. Lina froze, her heart leaping into her throat, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. Slowly, painstakingly, she turned her head, her eyes wide, darting into the inky blackness behind her. Nothing, just the empty space, leading into the deeper, unused storage areas of the market. She took a shaky breath, forcing herself to believe it was just the ancient building settling, a trick of the old wood. She turned back to her work, but her hands trembled, and her gaze kept flicking over her shoulder, a desperate, involuntary search for what wasn't there. Then, in the very edge of her peripheral vision, she saw it. A dark, indistinct shape, impossibly tall and slender, moving silently away from her, deeper into the oppressive shadows. It was just a fleeting impression, a ghost of movement. But the most striking detail was its back, unnaturally long and curved, like a hunched, ancient figure. Lina whipped her head around, her breath hitching in her throat. It was gone. Her eyes darted frantically, desperately searching the empty space, but there was nothing, just the oppressive silence. A profound, bone-deep cold descended upon the corner, far colder than before. It wasn't a draft, it was a chilling presence that seemed to suck the warmth from the air, making her own breath visible in thick plumes. She felt an undeniable pressure, a heavy, unseen weight pressing in on her, the sensation of being utterly, completely watched. Then a faint, almost imperceptible whisper reached her ears. It wasn't words, just a soft, drawn-out sound, like dry leaves rustling across a forgotten grave. It seemed to come from directly behind her, so close she could almost feel it on her skin. Lina spun around, desperate, her eyes wide with terror, pleading for something to be there, anything to explain the horror. Nothing. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming, suffocating. A chill ran down her spine, a cold hand seeming to trace each vertebra. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers clumsy with fear, and quickly turned off the music. The silence that followed was deafening, terrifying, amplifying the frantic pounding of her own heart. She was truly alone now, trapped in the chilling embrace of the market's darkest secret. Art 4. The escalation. The silence was oppressive, suffocating. Lina stood rigid, her eyes fixed on the dark corner, where the mysterious shadow had vanished. A small, intricately carved wooden box on her display table slowly slid towards the edge. It stopped just before falling. Lina gasped. She reached out, her hand trembling, and pulled the box back. "What do you want?" she whispered, almost pleading. A faint, almost imperceptible scrape echoed from the floor, as if something heavy was being dragged. The sound seemed to emanate from under her stall. Lina dropped to her knees, peering beneath the table. It was dark, dusty. She couldn't see anything. Then a shadow, darker than the surrounding gloom, moved under the table. It was long, thin, and seemed to undulate. It passed directly beneath her feet. Lina scrambled back, hitting her head on the underside of the table. She cried out in pain. She scrambled to her feet, her eyes wide with terror. She backed away from the stall, bumping into a stack of empty crates. The single light bulb above her stall flickered violently, then dimmed, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and stretch. Lina's gaze was drawn to the deepest part of the corner. The shadows there coalesced, deepened. A form began to emerge. It was still indistinct, but the outline was clear. A tall, impossibly thin figure, its back to her. The long back was unmistakable, a disturbing curve that seemed to stretch upwards, almost touching the low ceiling. It was completely still, just standing there facing the wall, its back near total darkness. Only the faint, ambient light from the distant market entrance provided any illumination, casting the long back into an even more terrifying silhouette. Part 5. The Abandoned Corner. Dawn broke, and the sun's rays filtered into the market, chasing away the night's shadows. Traders began setting up their stalls, and the familiar chatter resumed. Old Man Chen, yawning, made his way to his own stall. He glanced towards Lina's corner, expecting to see her. He stopped dead. Lina's stall was in utter disarray. Jewelry displays were overturned, necklaces scattered on the floor, some broken. Her small workbench was flipped. It looked as if a struggle had taken place, and Lina, she was huddled in a fetal position, tucked against the back wall of her stall, shivering uncontrollably. Her eyes were wide, unfocused, staring into nothingness. Her face was pale, streaked with dirt and tears. Old Man Chen rushed over, followed by Auntie Mai and other curious vendors. "Lina, what happened?" Old Man Chen asked, his voice filled with worry. Auntie Mai whispered, "Oh, dear child." Lina didn't respond. She just stared, her body trembling. Old Man Chen gently touched her shoulder. She flinched violently, recoiling. The back, the long back, it was there, all night, Lina whispered, her voice hoarse, broken. Her eyes darted quickly to the dark, empty space behind her stall, then snapped back to the worried faces of the other traders. It just watched, and then it was so cold. Auntie Mai put an arm around Lina, trying to comfort her. "We told her," Auntie Mai said to the other vendors, shaking her head. "We warned her." Later that day, Lina's stall was completely dismantled. Her few remaining belongings were packed onto her cart. She moved slowly, like a zombie, her spirit utterly broken. She didn't look back at the corner. As she pushed her cart out of the market, passing the sympathetic glances of Old Man Chen and Auntie Mai, the corner stood empty once more. The sunlight, so bright everywhere else, seemed to shy away from that particular spot, leaving it in a perpetual, unsettling gloom. A small, faint, dark stain was visible on the wooden floor in the very deepest part of the corner, almost hidden by the shadows. The market continued its bustling life, but everyone gave the corner a wide berth. The legend of the long back was no longer just a tale. It was a chilling reality, etched into the very fabric of the market.